So to really start understanding what NieR Automata is about and why it's so weird and why it's so special, I think you first have to look at who made it, Yoko Taro. He's sort of like the auteur figure, kind of like your Hideo Kojima or Hidetaka Miyazaki, in that he has a very specific vision for what he does. Everything like bleeds and drips Yoko Taro's sense of aesthetic, his bizarre sense of world building, his melancholic sense of character, and that's true of all of the games he makes, of which there are 5. So Yoko Taro's lineage starts with 3 games called Drakengard. I believe he was only loosely associated with a third. They never performed very well. To my knowledge, they weren't great games. I never played them. 4 was NieR Replicant, or NieR Gestalt, in Japan and US, respectively. And the 5th is NieR Automata, which just released this year, a couple months ago. The difference between somebody like Yoko Taro and Hideo Kojima is that all of Hideo Kojima's games have been at least very good. Whether or not they're for you, it's hard to argue that they're kind of float between like masterpiece and just really fucking good. The same can't be said about Yoko Taro's work. It has historically been very tonally consistent, very heady, very sort of subversive games, but they've never backed it up with strong gameplay. NieR Replicant was developed by Kavia under Square Enix. They were a short-lived Japanese developer, and Platinum Games picked up Yoko Taro for NieR Automata. If you're not familiar with Platinum, you've probably heard of Bayonetta. They made that. They also made Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutants in Manhattan, which was critically panned, and from what I have heard, very, very bad. So Platinum has sort of a checkered reputation, and I think everybody was nervous going into NieR Automata which side of Platinum we would see. Fortunately, it's the good side, not the best side, but one of the a good one. So let's go back to like why Yoko Taro's work is so singular and special. So the universe that he's made for his 5 games spans millennia, from the birth of Christ to 11,000 AD. He also made stage plays. He's also made manga. He's also written literature, all about this fictional world. It's really like one of the first examples of like absolute transmedia in video games. I mean, there are more, but this is one of the most prolific people in that regard that I've seen in our medium. What is NieR Automata? Aliens go to Earth. Aliens kill most humans. Humans leave. Humans go to the moon. Humans make androids in their image and send androids back to Earth to try to reclaim it, or to try to wage war against the we forgot the machines, right? So the aliens make something called machines, and we're not talking like humanoid machines, although they're bipedal and have 2 arms and 2 legs, but they're sort of like walking trash can, kind of like 50s sci-fi, like retro future stylized. The premise on its face sounds like it could be pretty loose. It sounds like kind of like rote anime shit. But what NieR Automata does is use that template to explore things like the meaning of the human body, the meaning of sentience, the meaning of consciousness. It not just does that through like narrative explanation, but through gameplay elements, which is what makes NieR Automata so special, is that although Yoko Taro has worked in stage plays and worked in manga, the things it talks about could only be done in the medium of video games, which is kind of rare to see in our medium when games look at something else. Like obviously Call of Duty can only be a video game because you have to engage with it to shoot things. But usually games that are about something else, talking about life or death or childhood or love or whatever, often don't feel like they need to be a video game. They could be a book or anything else. So what makes NieR Automata so special is it uses gameplay elements that I can't really describe here without sort of ruining the surprise of it, to look at those topics. Another really beautiful part of NieR Automata is its environmental setting. Not its graphics. The game looks like fucking garbage. It often looks like a PlayStation 3 game. For me, that's not a huge issue. But what I can say is the environments are beautifully designed aesthetically. Not in terms of level layout. That's a very different thing. And it doesn't nail the level layout, but often it evokes Journey, it evokes The Last of Us, it evokes The Road, It uses these really, really beautiful, simple images of like the toppled over tower, of the dune in the sun, of the carnival. These really like beautiful archetypal images that are sort of like Jungian in their simplicity and sort of like how they strike the subconscious. It seems like a perfect setting for something that has such like lofty goals in the way, in what it talks about. Level layout though, not great. The game is an open world game, open world. It's not a big open world. It is sort of several zones that are loosely connected together. Each zone is rather small. Unfortunately, those zones are traversed in a linear fashion, which is normally fine, whatever, I'm fine with linear games. But the way they're constructed is very labyrinthine. They have lots of like switchbacks and dead ends. When paired with its very, very poor map system, it makes it really hard to navigate areas that you should be able to very easily navigate. Like I'll never remember how to get out of Pascal's village no matter how many times I do it. One thing it does right and wrong is its combat in general. Combat is ferocious, it's fluid, it's fast, it's beautiful. It's second to only to something like Bayonetta in terms of its style. It doesn't use the sort of combo memorization and sort of combo fluidity that something like Bayonetta does, but it opts to bring in the bullet hell or shmup genre, which if you're not familiar, is a genre that started in arcades 20, 30 years ago. They're, usually you're playing flying against a background, shooting, raining bullets against oncoming enemies and shooting down their projectiles, which is the super important part. So projectiles in NieR Automata are sort of large, slow-moving orbs that fly at you in patterns. That's another very like standard bullet hell convention. Instead of having this intense combo memorization that Bayonetta has, it trades that for this sort of dance you have to do around projectiles flying at you while simultaneously attacking enemies. So it really stresses the acrobatic, it stresses movement, it stresses your position in the environment and how you move through it, and that feels really, really good. The issue is that you really need to play the game through 5 times to really enjoy and understand and really see the whole story. So the game has 26 endings, of which you only really need to see 5. The rest are sort of just joke endings. But unlike most games that beg for a second or third or fourth, or in this case, 5th playthrough, is that each time the narrative shifts between either subtly or very, very dramatically. Sometimes you're playing through another character's eyes. Sometimes your playthrough is just a continuation of the first time you played through it, and it's just a totally different game, just set in the same place. What that kind of does to the sense of environment and like sort of your sense of spatial awareness is that it feels like you're kind of in the set of a play. You kind of move through this space over and over with different actors acting out different things, but it's always the same space. And that really makes you have this sort of like tasty connection to the world, this really intense sort of familiarity. And just like how Resident Evil 7 builds that through going through the mansion over and over, and then subverts that by throwing something bad in the way when you're not expecting it because you're so familiar with it, NieR Automata does the same thing. So you might be in like playthrough 3 and you've walked over this bridge hundreds of times, and then when that bridge is torn down, it has a really special emotional resonance because you're so familiar with it. So the only issue with that method of storytelling of having to play it over multiple times is that the combat doesn't really hold up to that many playthroughs. While really good for 15 hours, 20 hours, because it lacks the combo memorization and customization and a flexibility of Bayonetta's combat, and I only compare it to Bayonetta because it's its peer, for better or worse, it just doesn't hold up to scrutiny after that long. It really starts to feel like a roadblock to enjoy the plot, and the plot is fantastic. Again, I wish I could talk more about the specifics of what it describes and what it talks about. We're just gonna have to take my word for it that I've never seen a game look at these topics and A, not be up its own ass, and B, have something to say about it in a unique and special way that really has never been done before in any medium. It's difficult to recommend to people that just play games because frankly the environments kind of fall apart after a while structurally. The combat begins to really become fatiguing. The RPG elements are so-so. The side quests are frankly pretty boring. But what it has to say with those mechanics and what it has to say narratively and thematically and tonally, I've never seen before, and like I said, in any medium. It's a really, really special, beautiful game. We rate our games in the pie chart kind of in the 9-ish range. I think it's sort of like recommended reading for anybody who likes video games. So if that sounds good, you should buy it and play it and love it. Let me know what you think. Thank you for your time. I love you.